I'm Macy Egland. Americans in the Middle East are being urged to leave this morning as war spreads across the region. Here's the latest. The U.S. State Department ordered the evacuation of non-emergency personnel and family in 6 countries. Airstrikes by the United States and Israel have killed at least 787 people in Iran. U.S. Central Command says the number of U.S. troops killed has risen to 6. Yesterday, Nassau County officials announced they've stepped up patrols in the wake of the strikes. Suffolk police also increased patrols at government buildings, religious institutions, and critical infrastructure. In 2 minutes, how the escalating Middle East conflict is driving up energy prices here on Long Island. Only in Newsday, a Bayshore woman is on trial accused of ordering gang members to kill a man outside of her home. Kayla Alvarenga is charged in the carjacking and killing of Linver Ortiz Ponce. Police say he was intoxicated and looking for a place to sleep when he parked on her street in 2022. They say Alvarenga was often worried about people watching her. A mini version of the Miracle on the Hudson. A small plane from MacArthur Airport crashed into the Hudson River. The single-engine plane with 2 people on board went down last night north of New Windsor. We're told the pilot and a passenger were not seriously hurt. No word yet what caused that crash. A Port Washington Foundation's giving is growing. The Peter and Jerry DeJana Foundation announced $26 million in new charitable funding yesterday. That money will be used to support pediatric health care and medical research.
The Peter and Jerry DeJana Foundation was born from a simple but powerful belief that success means little unless it is reinvested in the community that made it possible.
This is the largest philanthropic commitment in the foundation's history. Massapequa Park wants to overhaul its biggest municipal lot on Park Avenue. $1.5 million in federal funding will help fix the blacktop, install new lighting, and reconfigure how spots are laid out. First in Newsday, the Dick's Sporting Goods at the Sunrise Mall is closing April 4th. It's the last tenant at the mall in Massapequa. Amazon plans to build a warehouse on a portion of that property. Let's take a look at your forecast now. A brief wintry mix and rain on this Tuesday morning ahead of some more wet weather later this week. Let's take a look. As you see on that futurecast here, that wintry mess clears out around 11 o'clock this morning. But we've got some wet weather sticking around through tonight. Dry and warmer for tomorrow, highs in the mid-40s. That's improvement. But we've got some more rain on the way for Thursday and Friday as you take a look at your 7-day forecast. Your weekend right now, cloudy to start. Sunday's looking really good. Temps near 55 degrees.
Long Island weather is brought to you by PTRC.
Long Islanders are bracing for higher prices at the pumps because of the war in Iran. Virginia Huey takes a look at what it means for you.
I'm going to fill up now because the gas prices are going to go up.
Tricia Murphy of Lynbrook and many other Long Islanders are bracing for higher gas prices following the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran.
We still have to, put gas in our cars, and we have to, it's going to hit our pockets.
I mean, if it goes up $1, I'm worried.
Crude prices have risen sharply, which will mean higher prices at the gas pumps.
But we're at $60 a barrel about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Now we're 72.
The spike is being driven by concerns over attacks on energy infrastructure and potential closures of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil passes.
Tankers have already stopped going through there because they're worried about some sort of action on the part of terrorists, the Iranian Navy, that sort of thing. So that can create a bit of a bottleneck in terms of supply.
Some Long Islanders Newsday spoke with said higher gas prices would crimp household budgets at a time when many consumers are expressing concern about the rising cost of food, healthcare, and housing.
We already are dealing with inflation. The last thing we need is for more prices to go up. So absolutely, they're very, very concerned.
If they go up, what am I going to do? I still have to use the car for work. So whatever the prices are, that's what we have to pay. It's unfortunate.
Experts say the duration of the war will be critical.
We may end up in a prolonged war. And if that happens, without a doubt, oil prices are going to be way higher than what it is now. And that would end up being inflationary for us.
For Newsday TV, I'm Virginia Huey.
Our Ken Bufa is taking a deeper dive into how the conflict is impacting global energy prices.
Newsday business reporter Victor Ocasio and Mariana Torres, who is an economist and professor of economics at Adelphi University, are here to further discuss the potential impact of the Iran conflict on energy prices. Victor, we start with you. Winter is still not over, so explain a little bit more about how this could affect not only heating bills, but gas prices.
Well, from the sources I've spoken with today, when we look at what's happening overseas right now, we are already seeing disruption to crude oil prices, to the price per barrel. We've already seen significant increases in the last week or so since the attacks began. While it can take a little while for increases to work their way through the system, some of the folks I spoke to said retailers already seeing the headlines might already decide now is a good time to get ahead of those, and they may start implementing price increases already, even if, for example, the price of crude oil today may not be reflected ultimately for another 20, 30 days. Like I said, retailers they see the same headlines we do, and that might encourage some of them to see the opportunity to raise prices. Same thing goes a little bit with home heating oil as well. We see the same, crude materials used to make home heating oil, which I'm told is very similar to diesel. In essence, those are also seeing comparable increases in the price per barrel, which, those increases get passed somewhere along the line.
Now, Professor, to talk more about this local impact of rising fuel costs, if you will, also, how could it affect airlines and cruise lines right before spring break?
Well, again, a lot, as Victor's saying, depends on the duration of this conflict. But it's important to note that airlines have a significant share, maybe 30 to 40% of their operating expenses are fuel related. So understandably, they're already reeling. Like, for example, American Airlines, I think today last I checked, was down sharply. And this reflects investor fears of squeezed margins, especially they're expecting oil prices to continue rising. And cruise lines probably even face a harsher blow because their operations are really fuel intensive. And so we see, again, last I checked, which was a little while ago, the two of the big companies, Carnival and Norwegian, are both down a little more than 10%. So that's already reflecting concerns about what's happening.
Professor, I have another question for you. What's the impact of the conflict if it ends quickly or if it stretches over a long time?
The longer this thing lasts, the higher or the greater the increase in gas prices we can expect. And so longer term, if this continues, really for weeks or even months, the large oil giants surely will benefit from this. They stand to gain substantial sums from higher prices.
And Victor, I wanted to ask you a little bit more. How do you think this is going to play a role in inflation, given what you know?
Well, from the conversations I've had with some economists here on the island, as the professor mentioned, the role that crude oil, gas prices, all of this, that the intersection with the rest of the economy, Long Island's, the goods we bring, the materials that our manufacturers use, yes, we do bring some of that in by rail, but the overwhelming majority of things that come in from the ports and whatnot that come to New Jersey come via truck. And so when you see cost on transportation of goods go up as a result of fuel prices going up, that has to be passed down somewhere, and that gets passed down to buyers and other distributors, manufacturers, and of course, obviously, Main Street retailers.
All right, we will keep you updated, of course, on the Iran conflict and its effects here at home. Thank you so much, Newsday Victor Ocasio and Adelphi University's Mariana Torres for joining us, and you can read more about the conflicts and the economic impact here at Newsday.com. Just click Get More below the Newsday TV video box.
The Connecticut School District may be forced to rebrand again. It chose a new nickname, the T-Birds, last year to comply with the state ban on Native American mascots. The federal education department says that violates civil rights law. It wants the district to go back to using the Thunderbirds, but that could mean the possibility of losing state aid. People who live in the district have some mixed feelings about this.
I think it's ridiculous. It's crazy. It should be back to Thunderbirds. That's the way the people like it.
I think it's good to, appreciate the things that the area came from.
Well, everything else going on in the world, there's more important things, I think, to be concerned about over than a mascot for a school.
Now, joining me now to talk more about what some see as an impossible choice is Newsday education reporter Darwin Yanis, Tiffany Graham, Associate Professor of Law at Touro University, and Alan Singer, Professor Emeritus of Teaching, Learning and Technology at Hofstra University. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate your time. Darwin, we want to start with you. You've been reporting on this. Let's begin with the history of this name change. Give us a little background.
So out of more than a dozen school districts that were impacted by this mascot ban, the Connecticut School District was one of the last school districts to kind of push back on the state regulation. In September, the Board of Education approved a settlement with the state, allowing them to rebrand from the Thunderbirds to the T-Birds. Prior to that decision, however, the Federal Education Department, they started an investigation against the district, and in January, they found that the school district, by moving away from the Thunderbirds, violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Law of 1964.
All right, so Tiffany, explain a little bit more for us, if you can, about Title VI, just so we have a better understanding of what's going on here.
So it's a federal civil rights statute that essentially says if you are an institution, an entity that is receiving federal funds, you may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. And so what that means is the federal government has an understanding of what constitutes discrimination under Title VI, and it is monitoring various institutions that receive federal funds to ensure that they are in compliance with it. And if they are not, then there is a risk that they will lose federal funding.
Right. So is there a chance that the district could lose funding over this?
I mean, I don't want to overstate the point. It really is a matter of what the federal government says, what the state of New York says. Right now, the federal government has said that under its interpretation of Title VI, that changing the name is discriminatory, but all they were trying to do was comply with New York state law. But if you have a conflict between federal law and state law, and if the interpretation of the federal law is valid and upheld in court, then the state law has to bend. So really, what the school district has to be thinking is, well, quite likely what they're thinking is we might need to go along with what the federal government has told us to do and let the feds in New York fight it out.
Okay, so let's talk about possible next steps and get over to you, Alan. Is it possible that this goes to court?
Well, I would say it definitely will end up in the federal courts. We've already seen how this will work out with Trump administration directives on project funding like the tunnel across the Hudson, tariffs, due process for undocumented immigrants. All of these directives have ended up in court. I suspect New York State will ask a judge for an injunction if the federal government withholds funds from schools that change names and mascots. Lower courts will probably support the state while the case climbs to higher appeals courts. That's what's happened in other cases. It may eventually reach the Supreme Court.
If this does go to court, what would the implications be for other schools? Could this spur other cases, things like that?
Well, I suspect it's going to affect all the schools. Basically, what we will do is, other schools will sign on, either supporting the state or the federal government. What we'll be looking at is basically a hold on all school name and mascot changes until it's resolved in the courts.
So we, of course, will keep an eye on it. Some developments to come for sure. We'll follow all of the updates to this story for you. My thanks again to Darwin Yanis, Tiffany Graham, and Alan Singer for their time today. We truly appreciate it. You can read more about Connecticut's mascot fight on our website, newsday.com.
Out East with Doug Geed is brought to you by Connect One Bank, a better place to be.
Did you know there's a hidden trackside cafe in the Hamptons? Let's head out east with Doug Geed to the Little Gull Cafe in Spionk.
Spionk is one of those communities that even if you've lived on Long Island for a long time, you may not be exactly sure where it is. It's actually just west of West Hampton Beach. In fact, if you take the train out here, you would get off one stop before West Hampton Beach. And as soon as you step off the train at Spionk, you'll see one of the most unique restaurants on all of Long Island. I'm Doug Geed, out east on Newsday TV.
It was not intended to be a restaurant, but we've kind of shoehorned one in here, so it is very cozy.
Cozy is a good word to describe the Little Gull Cafe.
So inside, what's your max seating capacity?
I think 16.
The restaurant is inside what used to be the ticket room and waiting room of the Spionk train station that was built in 1870, then rebuilt in 1901 after a fire destroyed the original one. The Long Island Railroad owns the building and is the restaurant's landlord. And there's plenty of reminders of the eatery's past.
Where I'm sitting right now is the same seats that people were sitting in the 30s, in the 20s, waiting for a train.
And of course, there's a more obvious reminder of the history of this spot.
Everybody loves when the train goes by, little ones especially. It does knock plates off the counter. We have smashed plates.
But patrons will tell you that's all part of the charm of this place.
But it's got this wonderful homey feel. It's sort of nuanced. The more you look, the more you find interesting things, ranging from Elvis on the wall to different tchotchkes.
As for the food, there are some clear favorites.
Pancakes, 100%.
There's lots of comfort food items on the menu, but there's also more elevated things you might not expect in a place like this, such as lobster bisque and pasta that's made in-house, along with house-made breads and rolls.
It really is all about scratch-made food. Even like the tuna salad, it's like he's poaching the tuna and making it and not, opening a can. We all set to order?
We've been very fortunate in that I think we've become what I wanted it to become, which is a neighborhood restaurant.
In Spionk for Newsday TV, I'm Doug Geed.
And for more information on how to visit Little Gull Cafe and to see more Out East with Doug Geed segments, go to Newsday.com, click Get More below that Newsday TV video box. See more on these stories on Newsday.com and watch us streaming anytime on Local Now, YouTube, and the other streaming services you see here. I'm Macy Eglund. We've got more local news coming up.
Vision Zero is a global safety campaign aimed at ending fatal and serious crashes. Newsday investigates whether the strategy embraced by New York City and governments worldwide can work on Long Island. A vision for safety. Now available at newsday.com/dangerousroads.